Major companies are dropping their DEI programs, and the HRC has something to say about it. This is the Focus Group.
They're all business, except when they're not. It's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash.
Welcome to the Focus Group. John Nash here with my good friend and co-host Tim Bennett, who is feeling a bit better than last week. FocusGroupRadio.com is our website. If you go there, you'll learn about us. Also, our Tuesday podcast, DFG Unbuttoned. 3 stories, 20 minutes. I want to say we give you the world, but that would be like some news program that we used to see on TV. Also, a big thanks to Deep Discount, our partner here on the Focus Group. And later in the show, we are going to be playing the last week of the John Says Pick That Flick, which is a partnership with Deep Discount and the Criterion Collection, where we're giving away movies. And if you guess the name of the one the audio clue comes from, you may win a Criterion disc. So, Mr. Bennett, welcome to the official beginning of fall, even though it still feels like late summer to me.
Yeah, no, thank you. I'm under the weather, but I'd gone to an urgent care, one of those urgent care places.
Yes.
Which was a great experience down here. But as I was leaving, there was a McDonald's.
Oh.
And I almost pulled in, but I didn't.
Why didn't you?
Well, I have the craving for the fast food, but I haven't done it, and so I don't know why. But then I got home and I was watching some social media thing, and there was a woman on there who had just gone to Popeye's Chicken. And she was talking about how great the chicken was and the different things she got in the mashed potatoes and the whole deal. Have you ever gone to a Popeye's Chicken?
Never been to a Popeye's, no.
She was eating this thing, John. It looked like a gourmet meal the way she was eating it. And I thought, man, I got to go to Popeye's. Maybe I got to try a Popeye's chicken.
Did she take it out of the containers and put it
in
the serving?
No. She was eating right in the car, just talking about how good it was. But I was wondering about it. I've never been to any of those. I went to Chick-fil-A once. I was with a business. God, it had to be 10 years ago or more.
Did you like
Pre-boycott. I didn't understand what all the hype was.
It's just chicken.
It was a chicken sandwich. I was like, okay, what am I missing? But
what am I missing?
Right. So, but I know people love the Chick-fil-A. But so I almost pulled into McDonald's to get my cheeseburger or double cheeseburger, but I didn't. Now I'm kind of craving fish and chips. I don't know why. Fish and chips.
But Tim, I got to tell you, if you're leaving urgent care and you've not been, and you're under the weather, I can't think of any more comforting, chicken soup. But I think that a burger would have made you feel okay, right?
I think so. Yeah, I'm gonna hit it eventually. I'm surprised I haven't. Usually I drive to Ohio to my college's homecoming in October, and out to Ohio, and that's always an excuse somewhere between the East Coast and Ohio to stop somewhere and get something.
Yeah.
Which would be a burger at McDonald's or something. So maybe
on the Popeyes front,
if I do that, maybe I'll do it.
We were told a story once about two women who were having a conversation about Bojangles, which is a franchise I don't really remember, and I think it was Kentucky Fried Chicken, and the woman said, those Bojangles biscuits are way better than the Colonel's.
Yeah. Well, apparently the mashed potatoes at Popeyes are the best,
according
to this woman. But the last time I drove out west, I stopped and I looked on a map to find, because you and I have done this on our road trips when we did them with Volkswagen, to try to find, I knew where my mid-stop would be, so I tried to find what would be the local best kind of food to find in Cumberland, Maryland. And there were these chili dogs at this place that actually had gone in there, and they were quite good. I hunted it down and went in and said it's the equivalent of like the cheesesteak in Philly or something, but it was these chili dogs. They were really quite good.
And the place was actually open, unlike the time you and I had found this an address for the best pies.
Best pies in Kansas.
And we pull off the interstate, and the only thing open was the gas station, and tumbleweed is literally going down the street. Everything's boarded up. You come out with those Snowballs, Slim Jims, and the Dentine, which we put on the dashboard, take a picture of it. It becomes the most popular picture on social media.
Yeah. Who cares about any of the other things we saw? Everybody wanted to see the Snowballs and the Dentine. That was weird.
It was Kansas. I remember sitting in the car, or I put gas in it. I'm just looking at the main street, and it's just store after store is empty, and I'm like, oh, there's no pie here. No pie for us.
And you're right, a tumbleweed went. We had a tumbleweed twice. Tumbleweed blew through there, and then also in Texas when we were at the Barbed Wire Museum in
The bar with the stray dog going.
McAllen, Texas, with the dog with their teats full of milk and the puppies running after. That's when I drove by, and you're like, "Where are you going?" I said, "We're going back." No, you're not. You're pulling in here.
And it looked closed until we
All the lights were off.
Ka-chunk. Ka-chunk. You could actually hear him doing the circuit breakers. Ka-chunk.
Right.
Ka-chunk.
Old dusty Crown Vic sitting in the lot.
Was that Ina was the woman behind the counter?
It's close to that. It was Ina, I think.
I have to look through the book because you did a caption of me behind her smile. They were both smiling, but she had that sly smile on, like, I know you're a tourist to taking my picture at the Barbed Wire Museum.
Well, the guest book, I think, had somebody signed in that they were someone was from Monaco and somebody was from Paris and you put your little finger to your tap and he goes, I'm not so sure this is true. And she told you, no, it was. These
I would know.
Were here.
I would know. She would know. Yeah.
That place. Anyway, I'd go again if we drove by. I'd pull in
Merrimack Caverns again. Sure thing.
See the Devil's Wire. So, yeah.
Now you had something going on about someone sending.
Oh my God, I forgot. Yeah, I wanted to tell you. So we did our story about the $2 bills, and one of our listeners, longtime listener Bill, from San Francisco, had sent a letter to us that came to me, but to the focus group, and he had heard our story about the $2 bills, and he said in his letter, he said he worked for in the 90s. He was a co-producer on a PBS show, or worked in production on a PBS show. And part of the deal was that they would interview all the movers and shakers in the tech world, people like Bill Gates and stuff. So he said one day he was sitting around, the executive producer of the show whips out this sheet of $2 bills. So I think you got a picture of it if you're watching. And so they're all connected together. I didn't know you could get these. But there was a sheet of $2 bills all connected. All connected together. And the producer, Bob, says, he says, look at these. He said, these came from Steve Wozniak.
Oh, my God. Co-founder of Apple.
Of Apple. And they said he was known to do funny things and wild things, wacky things all the time. And he was known for going around to local stores in Seattle or wherever he was, and they said he had a huge envelope filled with these sheets of $2 bills, and that's how he'd pay for stuff. So it'd be like 6, 12, 18, which I thought was hilarious. One, I can't believe, I didn't know you could do these sheets. Did you?
So
I'm could buy sheets of bills.
So are the sheets perforated?
No, they haven't been cut. Well, so I've got it. If you can see, I've got it in front of me.
They're real?
No, they're real $2 bills. These particularly, let me pull up my magnifying glass so I can read it properly.
You're looking at where it was minted?
This particular set was 1976 series. So they're in okay shape. I mean, they've obviously been used. There's a little tear in one of them. But he had said the producer of the show gave him a couple of these sheets and said, here, Wozniak was paying for something, and I got some of these. So he said, 35 years later, I'm listening to your show, and you're talking about the twos, and he goes, I gave one of the sheets away years ago, and I've just had this other one around and thought you guys would appreciate it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to frame the letter that he sent in the twos. I'm going to get it framed and hang it.
Do a double where they're side by side.
Yeah, because I think it's kind of cool. But and he said the story. He goes, whether it's true or not, he goes, that's what my boss had told me. And he said, I've been carrying these around for so long, and since you guys have your deal with the twos, I'd send them out. So thank you to Bill in San Francisco for sending those twos and the story that goes with it. I thought it was kind of funny. But did you ever know that you could get sheets of money?
In fact, when you sent this, and I'm looking at the picture, I thought you had simply taken 3 $2 bills and laid them edge to edge,
right.
on the vertical, and it's and it's from It has a great, it has a great background,
right? And I'm going to ask
Provenance.
Pipkin. So here they are here. So I've got them. So you can see they're just one sheet.
Did you run this by Pipkin at all, by Mark?
I haven't talked to Mark yet. As I told you, I was sick, and he and I haven't connected. But I was going to ask him about where, Wozniak obviously was purchasing these things. There's sheets of them. And I didn't know you could do that, but that would be even funnier, right? Imagine going somewhere and somebody says, "Well, that's $13.92 or $11.95," and you take out
2 sheets,
2 sheets here. I mean, what do you do with them?
The cashier.
But they said he did it all the time. He paid with these sheets of $2 bills.
Yo, Tim, I love this story. I'm so glad this Bill sent it to you. This is great, right?
Yep.
I think it also proves our theory that if we started giving out 2s that had little stamps on them, I know that Mark says that's defacing the currency, but
I still think we can make the 2 popular. We'd have to get one of the big nonprofits behind us to get it pumped. But I still think, particularly in June, it could be the money that the LGBTQ population uses in June, so that people know you're there without being paying
so
in
there's
2s.
there's 2 great things about that. One, there's going to be a run on 2s.
Yeah.
And if there's a run on 2s and there's a story circulating that during the Pride Month everything's going to be paid, so it becomes gay money, right?
Right.
Or LGBTQ.
Which is a good or bad thing, right?
Yeah. And then the second thing is, if there's a run or it starts showing up, it actually does have a visual impact, right? And then the last thing is, if you could pay with a sheet of 2s, that throws everything into chaos.
Right, because what are you going to do with a sheet? And then you and I will be on MSNBC talking to Mika and Joe about it. It's our idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We had a lot of good ideas, Joe, that didn't happen.
And the first thing we'll say when we get on the table with Willie and the whole crew is that you and Joe share a birthday, right?
Yeah, exact day. Yeah.
And that me and Mika are sort of obsessed with the same stuff, with food and ordering a salad at a McDonald's.
Right. The only thing difference between you and Mika, she's not a sci-fi fan, not a movie fan. So that's where you.
That's
where
true.
She's,
That's true.
Yeah. But that would be quite the chat, of course. So, but I thought that was kind of a fun thing.
I can't wait to see this framed. I love it's one of those pieces of art that you will never forget where this came from. It's just it just got such a great history.
Yeah. So
all right, that could have been a caught your eye, but let's do caught our eye.
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
Yeah, I probably should have been my caught my eye. The caught my eye I have this week. The headline is "Billions of golf balls are lost every year. Where do they end up?" And so the story got a little wonky and well into the weeds, probably more so than I wanted to. But I never thought about it. They said the average golfer. First of all, I'm going to ask you a couple of trivia questions. How many So the United States has 43% of the world's golf courses. So how many golf courses do you think are in the United States? If you were just taking a guess.
I'm going to say there are 600 plus.
Okay. I probably would have figured out the same way you did, thinking, 16,752 golf courses in the U.S., more than the number of Starbucks or McDonald's.
Wow. Tim, did that number that shocked you? Yeah.
Shocked me. And they said the average person loses anywhere from 1 to 4 balls per game, whether they go in the water, they go into the woods,
sand
they
trap,
get lost, or you just can't, right, and they can't find them. So they said using this math, and they were trying to put together how many people lose balls and how many balls are lost. They said over 1.5 million golf balls are lost in the U.S. every year since 2020. They said if you laid those balls in a row, they would extend around the Earth's circumference more than 1.5 times. The worldwide figure is easily between 3 to 5 billion golf balls are lost every year. And where this came to light, a bunch of U.S. scientists were looking for evidence of the Loch Ness Monster via a little submarine. They went down into the depths and found hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands of golf balls because Loch Ness was near a golf course. Right, because they never here they're looking for the sea monster and they found all these golf balls. And if you're watching, you see this little sea otter there or
seal.
seal looking at some golf balls. So they started trying to figure out what has happened and what happens to these. So there are some golf ball recovery companies where they'll go and they'll rake and they'll go find things, or they can dive. There was one guy in California, he made a life of kind of diving into the ocean near some of the famous golf courses. He said he'd make over $100,000 a year reselling golf balls that he would retrieve out of the ocean. But they said the bigger issue to all this is they said the manufacturers, a golf ball is made with something called benzoyl peroxide, which helps to boost the flexibility and durability of the golf ball, but it's acutely toxic. And they also disintegrate slowly on the sea floor. And as they do that, chemicals from the tiny plastic particles seep into the ocean, gets into the fish, gets into people, our food supply. It takes anywhere from 100 to 1,000 years, they said, for a golf ball to decompose naturally. 1,000 years, can you imagine? So billions of these in the ocean or in waterways or rivers or lakes or whatever. So they need to address this problem. They're trying to figure out what to do. Some high school kid in near Pebble Beach asked one of the people at the course there about it, and they were trying to figure out themselves. They started piecing it all together and saying, "You're right. There is an issue with golf balls being lost and going into the environment as junk, essentially." So they're trying to make biodegradable golf balls that could actually disintegrate within 4 days if they hit the water. The problem is, they said that it's okay to use these if you're at a golf range or you're on a cruise ship or something. They said, but the problem is making these biodegradable golf balls is they lack the rubber core, which takes 30% of the distance off if you're hitting one. Mm-hmm. So the big challenge right now for the industry overall is to figure out how to make a biodegradable golf ball, or a golf ball that's more environmentally friendly. So that's what's happening within the golf industry now. I never thought about it. I remember I was golfing with our friend Tim Mahoney once, and we lost over 30 balls into the water just in one game trying to get across this water feature. So I could see where this is a real problem globally.
It's interesting that they're tackling it from the direction of making the ball biodegradable, as opposed to coming up with some kind of methodologies for grabbing the stuff off the bottom of the waterways, like that guy did you mentioned, who makes like $100K a year, like reselling these retrieved golf balls. And here we go. I mean, as you were talking about this with benzoyl peroxide, how long it takes to decay, I'm thinking we have made a mess of the planet, man.
Yeah.
It was something as innocuous as a golf ball, right? I mean, you never think of it, but that's our problem. We don't think about it.
Well, yeah, you're exactly right, and that's the bigger issue is what do you do about it? And they talked about the countries where it's the biggest problem, but there's I didn't realize golf was as popular as it is, but in 146 different countries, and then they listed the top countries in the world. Where this is an issue. It's Japan, Australia, the UK, US, no surprise. South
My
Korea.
brain's still back at the 1,000 golf courses in the nation?
16,000, where's the number? 16,700 and something. 752. 16,752 golf courses.
In the United States alone. Wow. That
With a
means
record
every
531 million rounds of golf nationwide in 2023. Jeez. So, do you play golf? Do you ever play golf?
I played in college. I had one game that I was actually good at, and then I just walked away from it. I can't fathom doing it.
Yeah.
I know that you and I thought about it from a corporate point of view. Everybody, corporate America loves golf, right?
They
Especially
love
execs.
golf. Yeah.
But it just holds so little appeal for me.
It's a lot of
That's
time.
me.
It's a lot of time.
Yeah. But hey, look, I have friends upstate who love it. Like, they'll go on a bike ride, and then they go play a round of golf, and that's a perfect afternoon. They'll do like a 30-mile ride and a round of golf. So,
jeez, what caught your eye?
What caught my eye is the late James Earl Jones. So everybody knows James Earl Jones has an incredible voice. He sadly passed away a week ago. And many know that he was the voice of Darth Vader. And the Darth Vader voice, in fact, is like, it's like his voice and the character are permanently linked to the point where he actually inked a deal with a Ukrainian company called Respeecher to clone his voice so that the Disney company could use it in upcoming Star Wars things like their Obi-Wan Kenobi. Wow. And some of their series where the character might appear. So what they did was Respeecher actually went and took footage from the original Star Wars movies that he was in, and they grabbed that audio and they fed it into an AI. They also took audio from previous movies of his, The Hunt for Red October, The Lion King, etc., if I'm not mistaken, just to train it on the different qualities of his voice, because he has a very rich baritone voice. And it was a very smart move that he did that, because Disney was like, "Hey, look, you're the guy behind the voice." Now, here's a funny little thing: when he did Star Wars in the 1970s, there was an actor named David Prowse who, on screen, played the character of Darth Vader, big tall guy, big guy. James Earl Jones was giving $7,000 to do the voiceover work for Star Wars, which is kind of crazy and cheap considering what that franchise did. Right. So once I heard that they had transferred his voice to AI, I went online, and there are a couple of sites that claim to be that they could create his voice. So I did a little thing for us here on the Focus Group. Let's see what you think of this.
You're listening to The Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash.
I don't think that sounds like him.
Well, it does at certain points, but it certainly doesn't sound like Darth Vader. So we know that they manipulate the sound and everything, but it sounds like him from an earlier time or maybe later. But yeah, that's what caught my eye.
So that's AI? That's AI generated?
This is AI. I'll do it again, yeah.
You're listening to The Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash.
I mean, the enunciation's good. The pacing is actually not so bad. I mean, a person could say that, but it was supposedly done by AI, yeah.
I wonder if he made more years going forward.
Oh, most certainly he did, yeah. Remember, he played in the movie Coming to America. He played Eddie Murphy's father, the king.
Right.
And he's done tons of roles. But and in later years and later Star Wars movies, when they would bring him in to do the dubbing, of course he made more.
Right.
By then, 7,000 wasn't going to cut it if you want the voice, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's just such an iconic voice.
Mm-hmm.
So
they've done it with a couple other voices too.
Have they?
And there's a couple companies that now, I think we did it on Caught Our Eye once a while ago, where you could like feed it a book to read to you, and you could choose you could choose a voice to read the book to you in. Right. I'm not sure. I haven't investigated that too much myself because I don't do the audiobook thing, but it's interesting.
Huh. James Earl Jones.
So there you go. We had golf balls and Darth Vader's voice. Yeah. But we're going to move on, folks. And as you know, it's Criterion Month here on the Focus Group with our partner, Deep Discount. Get to Deep Discount by going to focusgroupradio.com, clicking on the Deep Discount logo, start your shopping experience. And when you're at Deep Discount, you can specifically go to the Criterion Collection by looking for the studio, or it's probably going to be right on the home page as one of their ads. This is the landing page for the Criterion Collection, and this is the last clue we're going to be doing for the month of September. I'm going to just say, I said this on Unbuttoned earlier in the week, I'm amazed that no matter what piece of audio I grab, how obscure, our listeners get it, and they've gotten it quite well. So we've had a really great response to Pick That Flick this month. Here's how it goes. I'm going to play the clue. If you know the movie it came from, drop us your guess at letters@focusgroupradio.com. Include your mailing address. If you check your email frequently and you don't want to include your address, I'll send you a note if you win, and you can provide that to me. So without further ado, we have our last clue for Criterion Month. Here we go.
I make my salads on Monday, and I keep them frozen all week. I think I know what I'm doing.
Tim always tries to figure this out, but I'm going to play it again for everybody.
I make my salads on Monday, and I keep them frozen all week. I think I know what I'm doing.
there are some actors and actresses that have such distinctive voices that you
Can you run that
pin-
again? It froze up on my end. Can you run that
Okay,
again?
I'll do it again.
I make my salads on Monday, and I keep them frozen all week. I think I know what I'm doing.
She makes her salads
She makes her salads on Monday,
and she freezes them?
and she freezes them all week. I think I know what I'm doing. Yeah.
I don't know about that. I don't know if you can freeze a salad. Can you?
Yeah, I know. All right, we do
Okay.
have a new release this week, and it stars Nicolas Cage, actually, and it's called Long Legs. And I have not heard of this before, but here's the FBI agent Lee Harker is assigned to an unsolved serial killer case that takes an unexpected turn, revealing evidence of the occult. Harker discovers a personal connection to the killer and must stop him before he strikes again. The writer and director is Oz Perkins. It stars Micah Monroe, Nicolas Cage, and Blair Underwood. So there are some names in here, but I have not. It came out in 2024. So that's the new week. That's the new release this week, Long Legs, and I like that. It's you could tell by the cover of the film, like the box, right? There's these eyes. It's all red. The cover is red, so this is like a murder horror occult thing. So there you go.
So it's Criterion Month, and during the whole month, thanks to our friends at Deep Discount and the Criterion Collection, we've been playing John Says Pick That Flick. And all you have to do is guess the movie clip that John picks for your chance to win one of the discs from our friends at the Criterion Collection and Deep Discount. So the new release this week, as John mentioned, is a movie called Long Legs. So be sure to check that out as well. You can find tons and tons of media at deepdiscount.com. You get there by going to focusgroupradio.com and clicking on the Deep Discount logo and start shopping away. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we've got a business birthday and some shop talk. So stay with us.
You're listening to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com. Now back to The Focus Group with Tim and John. Available pretty much everywhere.
Welcome back to the Focus Group. John Nash with Tim Bennett. Focusgroupradio.com is the website. You'll learn all about us there and our Tuesday podcast, which is TFG Unbuttoned. And without further ado, as you know, if you're a fan of the show, it's time for the business birthday.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
So celebrating today, September 25th, is Melville Reuben Bissell. He was born September 25th, 1843. He died at a young age at 45 years old in 1889, an American entrepreneur who invented the carpet sweeper. And so the Bissell Corporation is named after him, of course. He was born in Hartwick, New York. He grew up in Wisconsin. As a young adult, he opened a grocery store in 1862 with his father in Michigan. And they began selling crockery and glassware in the Grand Rapids area. And he said they actually made a fortune selling this crockery and glassware and also investing in real estate. And his wife at the time, her name was Anna, not at the time, but his wife's name was Anna. And they worked together, and they were constantly tired of cleaning sawdust off the shop's carpet. So there was sawdust all the time in the shop's carpeting. And so he ended up inventing this little machine, or this little sweeper, and which would pick up the sawdust, and they would, use it around the store. And it didn't take long that many friends and customers would ask more about the sweeper than they did some of his glassware and crockery. So he decided to patent this little machine that he invented with a central brush, 2 rubber wheels, and some other improvements over previous sweepers, and able to start what is now known as the Bissell Company. He died of pneumonia in 1889, Grand Rapids. His wife immediately took control of the company, and she became America's first female corporate chief executive officer, which I thought was interesting. She aggressively defended the company's patents. She also handled marketing of the sweepers across North America and Europe. And it wasn't too long before the carpet sweeper, the Bissell, caught on with the royal family. Queen Victoria wanted them, and she insisted that the palace be Bisseled every week.
And it's like Xerox and Kleenex. You had to Bissell.
Right,
It wasn't
had to be
vacuuming, you had to
Bisseled.
Bissell.
So she also, Anna Bissell, established new guidelines on trademarks, patents, moved the Bissell carpet sweepers into the international market. In 1889, she created the largest organization of its kind in the world with the corporation. She became chairman of the Bissell Company in 1919. As president and chairman, she introduced progressive labor policies, including workman's compensation and pensions, way before this was a widespread thing in the industry, that said she studied business the way most women would study French. She kept pace with the growing complexities of industrialism and knew every facet of the business. For many years, she was the sole woman member of the National Hardware Association. She was very generous, and she had died in 1934 in Grand Rapids, Michigan. The company currently is run by Mark Bissell. It's still a privately owned family company, and it's fifth generation of family leadership, and the seventh oldest privately held manufacturing company in the United States. Its global organization headquartered still in Grand Rapids, Michigan. It has the number one market share position in the U.S. for floor care, with a strong and growing presence in international markets. I don't think I've ever owned a Bissell vacuum.
Neither have I. We were a Hoover family.
Yeah, we were Hoover or Electrolux. We were
Electrolux was the canister vacuum, right?
Yeah. So but Bissell, as they said, is the number one in the U.S. and still privately owned and family run.
And another stat that I loved from this business birthday: the seventh largest company, still privately owned.
Yeah, it's the seventh oldest privately held manufacturing company in the U.S. Yep. So
I think that's really cool. You know, the Bissell sweeper, I mean, we've seen them when we were growing up. I mean, it was that push thing, and I never really figured out how it worked, but
we had them. My grandmother, you know, it was the equivalent of the Swiffer now, right? Somebody's coming over and you got the Swiffer and you hurry up and you touch up the floor, the wood floor anyway. But I remember when people would be coming over, somebody was going to stop by, my grandmother would take out the carpet sweeper, which, you know, you just, pick up little pieces of lint or maybe a leaf or something. I could
pick up that I say, you don't have a clean home.
Right. So instead of taking out the vacuum, you just take the carpet sweeper and zip it around and you'll be all set. We don't have one now. I don't think my mother's has one anymore. I think the last one that had one was my grandmother, but I was wondering about getting a carpet. We don't have carpets here that I would use one, I don't think.
We
take out the vacuum.
The vacuum that we use that I love, that Bob's not so wild about because of the sound, but it's one you recommended that Brian had. It's
the Shark?
Yes. And I tell you,
Richard loves that Shark.
It's for hardwood floors, and it's also for carpeting. And I have used it in one room. I'll vacuum a rug, and then I'll do like in the bedroom, and I'll use it to go under the bed to pick up any dust or something. And then when I have to empty it out, I'm shocked at what's inside that canister. Do you have one of those things?
Yep. Yeah, it's no, I don't. I used to like to vacuum. I don't know why. I had a thing for vacuums.
I love it.
I
still like it. I actually like vacuuming. Yeah.
Yeah, but then I got waylaid with that Dyson. That was a big scam. That was a marketing. Talk about a marketing.
You know, my favorite story is how you put that out on the curb.
Mm-hmm. Little Gen Ys came to get it and was back the next morning.
Yeah.
So take it. It's yours.
From an anecdotal research point of view, it tells you everything you need to know.
You need to know, right? Who brings garbage back?
Who brings garbage back to the curb? Yeah, unless it was their most favorite thing. All right, we do have a shop talk, folks. We've been talking about this on TFG Unbuttoned in our show intermittently as this has been happening, and I teased it at the beginning of the program, but a lot of major companies are ending their DEI programs, and they're doing so because of a right-wing activist, an online guy named Robbie Starbuck, who literally seems to be going down the HRC's Corporate Equality Index and cherry-picking the companies that he wants to put in the crosshairs to end DEI. this article talks about a few that we know about already, but as of this past weekend or at the end of last week, apparently he struck again, and now Caterpillar, major corporation Caterpillar, is stopping DEI or rolling back those initiatives. So it's not exactly like it's for the non-surprising ones. I would say would be Tractor Supply Company, John Deere, Harley Davidson. Lowe's was a big surprise to me because that is a preferred spot for a lot of people, a lot in the community, LGBTQ community, to shop. Molson Coors was another big one because they've been in our space for a long time, supportive, I should say, and then Ford Motor Company. So with Caterpillar adding to the roster, in this case, the Human Rights Campaign, the HRC, their foundation basically came out, and now they're starting to publicize this more, and they're talking about how this is creating an environment where employees are not welcome at their companies. It's going to show up on their bottom line down the road, and I don't mean to like minimize this or something, but the fact that they're coming out with these statements now is one thing. I guess that's good. But I'm wondering who is honestly paying attention to all this, because I don't hear any uproar from anybody. I guess Tim and I travel in a lot of the LGBTQ plus circles from a professional point of view, but even there, I'm not hearing the kind of stuff I might have heard a decade ago or when marriage equality was being dealt with. So, and then that leads me to something that Tim brought up a while ago, which is if they fold like a house of cards so quickly, were they really that invested in DEI to begin with? Were they really, doing it, or was it just a reaction to the George Floyd situation and the Black Lives Matter movement back in 2020? So, Tim, what's your thought on this? I mean, it's sort of a
well, I sound like a broken record, and I understand the HRC probably was caught off guard and they're trying to figure this out. But my biggest complaint about any of these companies is exactly as you said: were they in it to begin with? And the other thing is, I think if they were, you and I have been disinvited to talk to companies because you and I asked this one question: what's your consumer-facing message? And if Lowe's or John Deere or anybody had a consumer-facing message, they would have something to measure. They would have proof that a diverse message, speaking to the consumer in the first person, speaking to a larger range or larger groups of consumers with a targeted message in the first person, is good for business, because you can measure that, right?
Yeah.
All of these other things are, and I hate to say it, but whether it's out and equal, these corporations have been able to hide behind doing all these internal practices. They all go to these big conferences every year, jerking each other off about best practices internal. Oh, we got an employee resource group. We put out doilies on the 12th, and so they all sit around and get everybody excited internally. But if what does that do for the consumer? So yes, the employees feel good about it, but if I was a consumer and I actually saw an ad from Lowe's or saw an ad from Harley Davidson or something that spoke to me, I would assume their internal policies are okay. You would have thought businesses would have learned this from Subaru and Absolute back from the 90s, right?
Yep.
When you have a message that lets people know you're open for business and you're welcome, is I don't want to say far more important, but does far more to squelch a lot of this DEI, the latest flavor of what the right's calling wokeness, because you actually could have proof that it's good for business.
Yeah.
And all these internal resource groups, whether it's for all these different, categories, you look at them and you kind of scratch your head, because you're making the people inside feel good. But what you're doing is you're hiding behind the fact that you're not really taking the step to take a public stance on some of these things. And that's where I think if the HRC or GLAAD or any of these groups want to say something, NGLCC, you need to call these companies out to say, okay, we expect you to have good internal practices and treat your employees well, all employees well. But what are you doing to let people know that you're open for business and open to marketing your products or your services to a wide range or an audience that would accept them? Where are you spending money? Okay, you're buying your supplier diversity programs or something, but where are you spending money in LGBTQ media or working with women-owned businesses or whatever. That's where I get a little bit of sounding like a broken record here. Is you and I have said this for a long time. These companies, I'm not shocked by it. I'm not shocked by Ford. Ford has been playing the game for years. We saw it with the LGBTQ marketing. As soon as they had a little bit of pressure on them, they backed right down.
All went away. Yeah.
And the fact that Lowe's has done it, I'm shocked. I'm not so shocked about Tractor Supply. I think Tractor Supply could have done something certainly differently. But have any of these corporations employed anyone with expertise in LGBTQ marketing, for instance, to help them guide them through this process? Or they just slap together, we're going to do something in June. We're going to do all these DEI initiatives that HR found at some conference they went to, best practices, and they're going to employ them at one size fits all, and one size does not fit all. So anyway, I'm rambling, but
but Tim, I'm going back to our years working with Volkswagen. So after Tim and I after Subaru, we jumped over to VW for almost 9 years, and Volkswagen was the interesting kind of blending of the two. So they wanted to speak to their LGBTQ consumers, specifically men. And I'm only saying this from research that indicated men were more intrigued by the styling of a VW car, the looks of it, for example.
They were more responsive to the message,
Yeah, and to that particular message. And so VW they weren't quiet about it. I mean, we went to many organizational events. We represented them at conferences. And then the notes would come in. And Tim and I have received multiple letters from people. Like there's one gentleman down south who bought I forget the style of the car, but he specifically said, I shopped a bunch of brands, but I bought this VW because they support you and they bring you to me every week. So in other words, they were supportive of LGBTQ media. And he thought our voices were important to be heard, and he appreciated that they did that. And then on the flip side of that, during one of their, they had I think it was National Coming Out Month or something. They had us down to speak to their internal employee group, and we kind of gave a little boring presentation about what we did. But the thing that was most fascinating to me was randomly, either Tim said it or I said it, but we started talking about what it was like going to work in the early 90s, let's say, or the mid 90s, being gay and not being out, and what that was. And then suddenly all the hands went up. What was it like? What was it like with coworkers and managers? And it turned into a really interesting and fun conversation that for these younger employees was eye-opening, because they were in a world where everybody, like what Tim was saying, internally there's some of these best practices going on. So I always thought that VW just did it really well, like Subaru. Like they didn't blow it up out of proportion. They didn't make a big thing out of it. They're like, you guys are the ambassadors for us. You're out there doing a great job. And so they had a consumer-facing message, which was us and a bunch of other programs they did. And they had the internal one, and it just worked.
Right. And it was. I know you mentioned quiet. But it was quiet. It was quiet in the terms of it was smart, meaning that it was very targeted and directed. And so it was quiet in that it was thoughtful, is exactly what you said. It just didn't blow out. We're going to be doing, because one size does not fit all.
No,
what we did for Subaru would not have worked for Volkswagen and vice versa.
Correct.
And what we would do for another car brand would be different as well. But it would be directed and smart. And, quiet, I like the word quiet, but quiet doesn't mean in the sense of the word that you're not there. It means you're just being very directed and not making it, as you said, overblown more than it is. It's not selling the tuck bathing suit at Target when you know that that's 0.00001% of your market.
Exactly.
Right? You figure out what messages resonate. But I don't know how the HRC, one of the things in here that they talk about in this article was that the fact that there's been press that companies are dropping out of the corporate equality index, that in fact they actually have more companies than ever that are joining and getting involved. But I think people are trying to hold some of these organizations like the HRC or GLAAD a little more accountable to what are you doing? And they kind of got caught off guard here. Now that Robbie Starbuck is kind of I don't know, an entity unto himself, and I think he's got a lot of sour grapes probably. But I don't know. It'd be interesting to see what happens if he really. I'm trying to think who he would go after, or when he'll get pushback if he gets pushback from somebody, or has.
But the methodology he's using of quiet, he approaches a company, and he claims to have employees at every company in America who feeds him information about what they're being told. You know, there's always a disgruntled employee who doesn't like, you know, Pride Month or something. But he's doing it in kind of like the Sun Tzu art of war. It's better to have your enemy fold than fight them. So his thought is, if I can get them to roll back these programs without making a lot of, you know, noise, but then thump my chest about it later, it's a victory. And it is. But at the same time, like, my knowledge that Caterpillar is rolling back DEI has zero effect on me because I'm not buying heavy machinery.
Yeah, when it comes time for your next bulldozer.
Exactly. You know, for Tractor Supply, it did affect a lot of people in rural areas who own farms and who go there and shop, and there was pushback to that. But I guess in the end, it just says to me that we are now so distracted by every glittery thing that's going on. It's the people that are eating cats and dogs in Ohio. It's all the crap that's going on. That this other stuff is going on too. But I think this is almost more important than what the stuff that's distracting us. And going back to what we were saying about some of the programs we've done for companies, Tim is right. Quiet is one thing, but when you talk to people in marketing departments who are doing media buying, they don't like the word quiet. No. Everything has to be, what's my ROI?
Clicks.
Yeah, how many eyeballs are on something? How many clicks am I getting? And the fact of the matter is that you and I have never liked those. In all our careers, we've never liked those metrics. And Tim used to always push back at Subaru whenever he was questioned about the programs that he ran. And he had a whole roster of programs that he ran, from ski patrol to LGBTQ to nurses to the Greens Grow, you know, to organic food. And often you would just simply say, are we selling more cars or less cars?
Yeah.
We're selling more. Okay, it must be working.
Right.
I mean, I'm simplifying it, Tim, but...
No, but you would measure everything to see. And that's where I said, you know, when you have these internal programs, it's one thing and it's nice to do and you need to do it. But if you actually don't have data that says it makes good business sense, and that's where the sales came in. I could prove every year, when asked by the CFO and the senior leadership, that the LGBTQ program was the top 3 of all the things we did in terms of sales volume. Skiing was by far number 1. And then it would go between LGBTQ and educators and perhaps cyclists or canoeists or something. But I could always prove it and show it because we measured it based on sales, based upon donations given to nonprofits for purchasing of cars, proof of purchase sort of stuff. So there is a way to do it. I just don't know why companies don't do it or don't do a better job of it. But it's you and I banging the drum. Call us.
Call me.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So, hey, So thanks for joining us here on the Focus Group. We appreciate your time with us. As you know, we release the show also after its video cast on Wednesdays, on Saturdays as an audio-only podcast version, or easily transportable version, as Mr. Nash says. Be sure to check us out and learn more about us at focusgroupradio.com. And also, it's Criterion Month here on the Focus Group, so we've been playing John Says Pick That Flick, thanks to our friends at Criterion, and a deep discount for your chance to win some discs. If you need to rewind or listen again, send your guest to letters at focusgroupradio.com. We want to remind you that there's also a new release that's out this week from our friends at Deep Discount called Long Legs. So be sure to pick that up as well while you're looking at the Deep Discount site. We hope you all have a good week. And remember, don't text and drive, arrive alive, and we'll see you next time on the Focus Group. Take care.
It's the Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.